The gameplay of Smash Bros., League of Legends, and Genshin Impact all center around their combat system full of tons of different characters for you to spend your money on. I've wasted maybe too much of my own time just thinking about moveset possibilities for each of these games and what cool and interesting ideas could be used for new characters. I just like their combat systems, what can I say? And to really highlight how these three games would each tackle the same concept very differently, I want to take one character idea and try to design a moveset based on that in each game. The easiest thing to do would be to take an already existing popular character, but I don't want to do anyone who's already in these games, which, because of Smash, eliminates a lot of clear options. So that really only leaves one choice. Master Chief. We need to start by identifying what key concepts of Master Chief's character we want to use as a basis for our other movesets. So first off, he's bulky because of his armor and regenerating shield, but he also has a ton of movement capabilities. Being tanky and mobile is fairly unique, so let's hold on to that. The regenerating shield part specifically is also very iconic, so I'd like to focus on that if I can. But another major aspect of Master Chief is how he adapts on the field. In Halo, you're thrown into the world with a pistol and rifle, but those never last you long enough to finish the mission, so you're encouraged to scavenge for any weapons, ammunition, and items you can find in the area or take from the enemy. Now, I can tell you already that none of these games will let us literally take weapons from the enemies we kill, but that's still a very interesting and key part of Master Chief's design, so I want to hold on to that adaptable scavenging trait. And lastly, but most importantly, he's really cool. Now let's get in there and make some movesets. We'll ease into this with the most popular game that I hope everyone who's watching is at least somewhat familiar with. Smash gives us a large selection of attacks to work with, being normal, smash, aerial, and special attacks. Smash also doesn't have any restrictions on what a playable character can be and what we can do with the moveset, plus with it literally being a crossover game, we can take a whole lot of elements directly from Halo without much need for interpretation. So this should hopefully be pretty straightforward. Starting with some of his key ideas, Chief is going to be a heavyweight that is decently agile, and his main gimmick will be his weapon variety. We can't take weapons from our enemies, but we can definitely show off the diverse selection of ways Master Chief commits heinous war crimes. There's three major species of weapons in Halo: Human, Covenant, and Forerunner, and we'll have Master Chief's down special swap between them, like an epic Pyra Mithra moment. This will switch all of his weapons to the equivalent of the other species. Attacks with human weapons will generally be slow with lots of knockback. Covenant weapons will be medium speed with little to no knockback, but they'll stun enemies for a bit. And Forerunner weapons will be the fastest, but have very little stun or knockback. I thought this would be a good way to shake things up from the usual fast but weak or slow but strong options that other stance-changing characters tend to have. Instead, Master Chief's damage doesn't differ a whole lot between weapon types, but the way his attacks impact his enemies does. As for what his actual attacks will be, his basic normal attacks can all just be punches and kicks. Master Chief isn't above throwing hands from time to time, but he'll use his weapons for every other attack. I'm not gonna list every specific move, because that'd take a while, and I'm sure there's plenty of Master Chief in Smash moveset videos already out there, but some other examples to show how I imagine the weapon types working are like his side smash, which could be the rocket launcher, a good decently ranged, powerful attack to KO enemies, the gravity hammer, which would stun enemies who are hit up close, but would simply push enemies who are further away, and the sentinel beam that just pierces people from a long distance. Another option is to give him a throw that shoots people repeatedly with the pistol, needler, or bolt shot. You could even do a dash that stuns people behind you with the energy sword, an attack with the heat wave that is either powerful but precise or weaker but wider, or a sniper shot that gets stronger further away. So already you can see how many different types of weapons he'll be using. But with Master Chief's variety of weaponry and his agile tankiness already covered, that means that his remaining special attacks just need to reinforce those ideas. For example, his up special could be the grapple shot from Halo Infinite for extra mobility. It'd function kinda like Joker's up B, but maybe you can hold B to aim it in any direction. That way you can grapple onto other terrain, or even grab items from a distance. That'd be fun, probably. His neutral B could just be Snake's grenade toss, though maybe it switches from a normal grenade to plasma to pulse grenade, depending on which weapon loadout you're using. And his side special could be based on one of his other powers, like armor lock, drop shield, or thruster. As you could probably tell, the only real difficulty with putting Master Chief in Smash was with representing that idea of taking your equipment from your enemies as you go. Other than that, we didn't really have to compromise on the specifics of Master Chief's identity because there's no limitations in the setting of Smash Bros. But we won't have that luxury in... We only have to worry about 4 moves and a passive, but the mechanics of League can get a lot more complicated than Smash. Plus, since this isn't a crossover game, we now have the restrictions of setting. We're gonna ignore how Master Chief's visual design doesn't work in the world of League at all, since this is focusing on movesets rather than visuals, but that still makes a lot of our weapons difficult to justify, meaning we'll have to find some other way to work in his weapon variety. We should start with a solid passive to build our idea around. And while I couldn't think of a good way to incorporate this into his Smash moveset, I wanted to focus on Master Chief's recharging shield as much as I can. So for our passive, we'll give Chief a natural shield that will regenerate when he's been out of combat for a while, similar to the passives of characters like Malphite or Rakan. Although I want this to be a large part of his identity, so the shield should be massive, and we'll balance it out with a very low base HP. This might make him feel less like a tank, but I'm kinda gunning for a bruiser archetype anyway, and although I want Master Chief's damage to be AD, which is just attack damage, I still want his shield to scale with AP, ability power. And you'll see why a bit later. Now, the passive we have is already quite unique, and I want to lean into that shield-based bruiser identity, but it wouldn't be a modern League champ design if we didn't have a second gimmick so complicated that it makes people forget about the first one. And we also have to work in Master Chief's scavenging trait anyway. After thinking for a while about possible ways to make that happen, I remembered that the champion Zoe has an ability where she can take the active power of any item or summoner spell in the game. However, I want Master Chief to take only items, and not just the active abilities of them. So when killing an enemy, or sometimes randomly when killing a minion, they'll drop one of the items they have, and Master Chief can pick it up into his W ability slot. Pressing W will discard the item so you can pick up another when you want, but that also means that items with active abilities can only be used once, since they are immediately discarded once you use them. Now already this sounds like a balancing nightmare. You get an entire extra item, early, and for free, but the item is only whatever your opponent is building, so it might not even be useful. And yeah, that would be difficult to balance, which is why it's good that I'm working in hypotheticals, so I don't need to worry about that too much. But that is why I said that I wanted Chief's shield to scale with ability power. That way nearly all items will be potentially useful to you. Attack damage items from assassins, marksmen, or bruisers will help you with your damage that scales with AD, and ability power items from mages or supports will boost your shield that scales with AP. The only items that aren't specifically helpful are tank items. They're still good, but nothing in Chief's kit is boosted by health or resistances, which I like because bruisers are typically the counter to tanks, so the items you get from the people you're likely to kill the most won't be super useful to you. All this will hopefully help balancing be a bit easier. The rest of his kit isn't anything special. We already have 2 insane gimmicks, no need for any other fancy stuff. Master Chief's auto attacks will be short burst shots from a battle rifle-esque weapon designed after the guns League already has. His Q will be a simple skill shot where he throws a grenade out that explodes in an AoE. His E would be a short dash because we've got to get the slight mobility in there, and every League champ needs a dash. And lastly, his ultimate could be the overshield power-up, doubling the size of his shield and maybe giving him some small attack or speed boost. I don't know, just a flat upgrade to his power fits him well, I think, and that helps boost his identity as being shield-based. And so, while there were a few restrictions, we still got lucky with the idea of heavy armor and guns already being common in the world of League, which won't be the case with
According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale, we now turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale. Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale.
Genshin is by far the simplest moveset we have to deal with, but that also makes it the most restrictive. Genshin characters only have an element, weapon, skill, burst, and 3 basic passives, which is already more than I thought, to be honest, but still doesn't leave us with a lot of options. There's also the issue of our setting not really having anything even close to power armor nor a wide variety of guns, although there are a couple. Again, we're not worried about visuals, but this means that his traits will be a bit more challenging to translate. Also, Genshin has had one singular crossover character before, it's just that that crossover character, doesn't really help us. Aloy had none of the challenges that we do, so let's just imagine this more as a completely original character that will just share Master Chief's key traits rather than a crossover. Starting off, we need a weapon and element. Our weapon options are sword, claymore, spear, bow, and catalyst, and our element options are pyro, hydro, cryo, electro, dendro, geo, and anemo. The only real choice for element that I think would make sense is electro to tie into the power armor idea. You could make an argument for Geo since it's a very defensive typing and Master Chief is a very tanky character, or Pyro since guns use fiery explosions or something, but overall, Electro is heavily based around the idea of recharging energy for your burst, and that's probably the only way we can represent the recharging part of his shield, plus Master Chief's burst is something we'll be wanting to use a lot. As for his weapon though, none of these are a gun. But that doesn't mean we're out of options. We could go with sword because of the energy sword, or claymore because that's the big beefy boy weapon and Master Chief is a big beefy boy, but bow and catalyst characters can change their attack animations pretty drastically to look like an entirely different type of weapon, and some catalysts literally just punch people. So I don't think it's entirely out of the question to have a catalyst character using a gun to shoot out energy. Flintlock pistols are a thing in Genshin, so let's go with that. For the skill and burst, there's actually other characters we can reference. For example, whatever, uses a spear normally, but her skill uses her rifle to shoot enemies. The crossover character Aloy also throws ice grenades for her skill, and there's characters like Dea who switch their entire fighting style during their burst. Taking this all together, Master Chief's skill will be a grenade that sticks to enemies and then blows up after a while, generating a lot of energy for his burst. Said burst will give you an electro shield and switch him into rifle mode. He takes out a rifle, which is the most common type of gun in Genshin actually, and allows you to aim at and shoot enemies, similar to how bow characters work in the game. I think everything in his kit, including the strength of the shield he gets from his burst, should just scale with the normal old attack stat. That way people aren't encouraged to make him too tanky, but his shield is still going to help keep you alive. Last is the 3 passives. Normally these are broken up into 2 combat passives and 1 utility one. The utility passive is usually something simple, like sprinting consumes less stamina, so we'll go with that since Master Chief, runs a lot. But his 2 combat passives have a lot more free reign, so the first passive will increase the attack stat of your entire party for having a wider variety of weapon types on the team. So if all 4 party members use a different weapon type, you'll get the max bonus. The other passive can be that enemies hit by his skill or burst are marked for a bit, and using his charged attack on the marked enemy will do more damage and give you back some energy. Both of these are just ways to push the weapon variety. And that's the Genshin moveset sorted. Technically, there's also constellations you can unlock by getting a character multiple times, and those can completely modify a character's moveset, but Aloy didn't get any of those, so let's just say that I don't need to worry about that. So all in all, I think I did pretty well with translating Master Chief's core ideas into Genshin despite the restrictions. Would it really feel like a Halo crossover at all? No, but the goal was to treat Master Chief's key traits as a launching pad for an otherwise original moveset design, and I think I did pretty well with that. But with that said, let's reflect on how this turned out overall. The idea of a semi-agile tank that scavenges for any and all equipment throughout battle is a pretty unique character design for each of these games, and in the end, I kinda like all three ideas I came up with. I think they're fun. Although, obviously, I like my ideas, I'm the one who came up with them. So, more importantly, what does this show us about the design of each game? Well, I think that how each game had to handle the concept of scavenging for weapons really highlights how differently you have to approach these things. For Smash and Genshin, where the idea of taking weapons wasn't really possible, we had to focus on the fact that Master Chief uses lots of weapons. And while I think I could've maybe pushed Smash a bit further if I really wanted to stick strictly to taking weapons, Genshin is far too restrictive for us to get much further than we did. But focusing on encouraging weapon variety and putting as much variety into Chief's own kit as possible really worked to create an interesting design in both cases, I think. As for League, its item system is universal, so we could actually make it possible to take items from your enemies, and in trying to make any item at least somewhat useful on him, Master Chief's weapon variety and diversity shine through pretty well too. In the end, these all turned out as very different characters, despite all having the same concepts at the core, which I find really cool. And I think the main takeaway is, making movesets is fun.